betrayed WCW.
What in the hell is he doing here? Monday Nitro. He is broken.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Brett Scream Brett. The new world order, brother. Let's get this. We are at war.
Nitro. Let me begin.
All right.
When this show opened, and Tony Schiavone said, "Welcome, fans, to WCW Monday Nitro. Tonight, scheduled for 2 hours, maybe more." I was like, you motherfuckers. This show went 3 hours again.
Yeah.
Can we stop? I know it's a rhetorical question. They're going 3 hours permanently in a month now. God, 2 months.
So first they announced that Sting and Hulk Hogan had signed their contract and would meet in December. They plugged what they claimed were super high ratings for Assault on Devil's Island, and then we got clips of this masterpiece.
Okay, first off, it did do great ratings.
All right.
And what was that TV series we were talking about last week? Shadow Warriors or something?
What? Over my head. I've already forgotten.
When we were looking at Assault on Devil's Island, we were Googling it.
All right, sure.
Anyway, I think they actually did do a spin-off television show because this one did so well. Now, Tony Schiavone says, and this is a quote, rated one of the top 4 cable movies of all time. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
This looked like the worst movie in the history of the planet Earth. Am I wrong?
I have seen at least 3 WWE-produced films, one of which starred The Miz. All of them blew this out of the water.
Dude, guaranteed The Miz.
That was Shannon Tweed, right? The girl.
I didn't look it up. That's a safe guess.
That's Gene Simmons' wife.
Yeah. There was a hot blonde shooting 2 machine guns that had mysteriously 0 kickback of any kind whatsoever. This is not a realistic gunfight they had.
Dude, this acting was so absolutely horrible. And then...
You're right.
They go to the press conference.
I'm not done talking about the movie yet.
Well, let me just ask my question before you bury the movie more.
Okay.
Was the acting in the movie or the press conference worse?
Oh, the movie for sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm quite certain it was the movie.
Hogan awkwardly saying, "Look at him. He's scared, brother." During the press conference?
Yeah.
Come on.
But while we have buried the acting in the film, we have, and by the way, this is like a 20-second clip. We have buried the gunfight. Let's not overlook whoever wrote this dialogue. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? Never mind. Let's grab what's his name and get out of here. What?
Vinny, you gotta watch the movie, dude.
No, I don't. Don't even start. Don't even start.
There's no way we'd find it.
Are you kidding me?
So, they go to the press conference. Sting is late. Yes. Hogan acts badly and awkwardly. This is definitely live TV.
It was so bad.
My favorite part was there's the whole press conference setup. Hogan speaking at the podium. There's mics there. And they got WCW officials. There's J.J. Dillon. Bischoff was there. 2 or 3 other guys. And a guy at the end who I can only assume was from the MGM Grand. Sting walks in and makes his big dramatic entrance. Hogan freezes. Everyone else vacates the area except what's his name at the end, who just sits there. And Sting has to walk in, and he has to keep an eye on Hogan while also not tripping over the steps and the cables and everything else going on. He has to walk over this guy who is still taking a seat, still in a seat. He has to carry the bat up and over around the man's head. All of this, and the payoff is he signs the contract without looking. He must then go backwards and do the same thing. Thankfully, they yank the goober out of the way, and Sting leaves, and that is it.
So it does look like Hogan never did a television series, so maybe somebody else got to do it, but Assault on Devil's Island was followed in 98 by 3 Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan was always involved in islands and mountains.
Bays.
Assault on Death Mountain in
the hell's-
1999.
Isn't he a babysitter too or something?
Paradise, Thunder in Paradise. He was on an episode of Baywatch, but didn't have his own show. The opening match on Nitro was a tag team encounter pitting Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio Jr. and Steven Regal. The weirdest and greatest team I ever saw.
Parejas Increíbles match.
Never been more true. Regal and Mysterio.
This is like the Battle Bowl where they actually pulled names.
You know what was disappointing
Yeah.
about it, though?
Nothing.
No, there was something.
All right.
Eddie and Regal was not as good as I expected it to be. There was, in fact, a little bit of a styles clash. Other than that, it was great.
It was
To the point that Regal decided, at some point, I'm going to do a running high cross.
yeah.
Because it's a lucha match.
Eddie is such a heat magnet. He just stands on the apron and is hated.
Oh yeah.
He didn't do a thing, and they're chanting Eddie sucks.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Eddie in this show and Rocky in the other show were the guys who could massive heel heat for doing literally nothing. So I will say Regal here was starting to get a little flabby. Had a singlet. Needed a bigger singlet. His wrestling was still great. They were trying to push this as saying this is the kind of crazy matchup you'll see in World War III.
This might be coming. At least we'll get to see matches like this.
I guess so.
When World War III comes.
So they had a short, great match. Ray kicked Regal on accident. Eddie powerbombed Ray, but Malenko tagged himself in and tapped out Ray with a cloverleaf. So Eddie and Dean were not getting along. And then Regal actually checked on Ray, and I was certain was going to put the boots to him, but no. He just he was half-hearted about it.
Oh, it was his partner.
It was his partner.
He is a lord.
He is.
He is a man with...
Manners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Etiquette.
He is a man with etiquette.
He's a proper gentleman.
Dave Taylor versus Fit Finley.
Not as good as last week.
That was quick.
We had Raven and his crew interrupting the match with their entrance a minute in.
At least they weren't in a tree this week.
They're not in a tree.
That's a positive.
Dave Taylor.
So stupid. You weren't here for this.
Yeah, he climbed a tree in his wrestling boots
Yeah.
and knee pads.
It was his safe haven.
Yeah.
It was Raven's safe place.
Well,
a fucking tree.
He's a bird.
Yeah, his name's Raven.
Got a nest up there.
Makes sense.
He didn't have a nest. He was just sitting there.
Well, he hadn't started it yet.
Well, where in the world are you going to yell Nevermore from?
Anywhere.
We've seen that, actually, yes. All I got to say about this match is at one point, Dave Taylor did a press slam, which has to be the skinniest arms I've ever seen on a guy doing a press slam. And then Finley started waving his hands in the air to indicate he was not helping with his press slam. This looked like Hong Kong wire work or Hollywood CGI. I couldn't believe my eyes. And then like a second later, Finley hit a tombstone and won. Public Enemy did an inset promo running down these Steiners.
They said it's table time.
Yeah.
Made me hungry for taco time.
Ooh, good call.
I'm a big fan.
The announcers plugged Ric
Dude,
Flair.
I'm going to do did I tell you I'm going to do a taco time newsletter?
Huh?
Yeah. I was at Taco Time the other day, and there's nobody at the front counter.
Uh-huh.
But there's a bunch of papers laid there,
Sure.
and I'm looking at them, and the papers are like,
Taco leaks.
from this point forward, 1 scoop less chicken in the soft taco,
Ooh.
and make sure you tell customers that the prices may be going up to ensure quality.
Wow. Scoop.
I'm like, man, I was a scoop.
Yeah.
And I thought I could do
Actually,
a
I took a scoop
newsletter.
away.
I have breaking news right here. Taco Time raising prices, cutting how much food is in the soft taco.
They better not screw with that crisp burrito. I'll tell you that.
You ever had the nachos at Taco Time?
No.
I've been to Taco Time for almost 35 years or more. Never had the nachos until like a month ago. They're tremendous.
There's a Taco
They're so
Time
great.
in Seaside, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And I went there, and the tater tots, the Mexi fries, are different.
How so?
They're just different.
Made with sea salt?
Nah, they're just different. They're like the tater tots you'd get anywhere else.
Sean was telling me
Very
on his-
disappointed.
when he moved back home on his cross-country drive, he found at least one Taco Time that was like a rip-off Taco Time. I think what actually happened was they expanded and it failed and they sold them off. But there are Taco Times out there that are not as good as the Taco Times we know.
Well, that's the one I went to.
You know that 3/4 of this country is going, Taco Time?
Listen, everyone, if
Well,
you've
they
never
can
been to the
start their own
Northwest,
goddamn show then. They'll know when they come to the Northwest to go to Taco Time.
hop on a plane, come to Seattle, go to Taco Time, get anything, and go home.
Get the crisp beef burrito.
That's the most unique thing.
Yeah, I don't have them a lot, but they're very good.
And if you come from the California area, grab some In-N-Out, and we'll do an exchange.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Or Whataburger. Also, we will accept.
Fine.
Yeah. Where the hell were we?
Bischoff on the phone being a troll.
That's right. They were plugging Flair and Hennig when Bischoff called in to troll them.
Hey, if you guys have been listening to this show and you want to know what Vinny looks like when I go off on a rant, watch this show and Tony Schiavone's response to Eric Bischoff trolling everybody.
It's true.
It is true.
I hadn't thought about that.
It's absolutely true.
Do I go on rants often?
No, when I do,
Yeah, well, Vinny
you do
does.
it.
I see. Okay.
You put your head down and you go like this with your head.
Yeah.
That I
It's good
see.
radio, Brian.
Yeah.
He
If there had
buries,
been a mic, he would have headbutted
he
it.
buries his face in his hands and holds his temples.
Yeah, that happens. That is a fact. Anyway, Bischoff, what the hell did he do? First, he claimed Hogan was not scared of Sting and had challenged him many times. He insulted Roddy Piper, said he may have suffered nerve damage in the last NWO attack, but he buried him and said he had brain damage going in, so who cares? Bragged about Hogan's movie.
Don't think you can get away with that nowadays.
No. Took shots at Vince McMahon and the USA Network for their Best of Survivor Series special. That was a failure, he noted. She just said epic fail. He promised the whole NWO would be there next week, including the big man.
It goes to Big Man, and then he doesn't say who the Big Man is, and I'm like, Hulk Hogan.
I assumed Hogan.
And then Tony Schiavone's like, by the Big Man, I presume you mean Kevin Nash. And Eric's like, yeah, Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
And I was like, he forgot his name.
He may have joined Scott Hall on the I'm not sure this guy's sober, but he's performing list. And none of this, by the way, is piped in over the house. So this is 5 minutes of silence for
Yes.
for the Philadelphia fans.
And they started chanting boring.
Philadelphia fans in all sporting events known for their patience and well-behaved etiquette. Yuji Nagata versus Psychosis.
Oh my God.
Not boring, but for different reasons.
Psychosis nearly kills himself with a flip dive over the post of the floor.
Yeah,
Falls right on his ass.
yeah,
Then he does a running leg drop off the apron, falls right on his ass.
yeah.
Like, what are you doing, dude?
He was trying to die.
Protect your ass.
Well, he did. And he went up top for a run and fell on his head.
Still working.
Still around.
Still alive.
It is amazing.
I was screaming watching this.
Maybe I was wrong about Sasha.
So finally, Sonny Ono, while arguing with the ref, kicked Psychosis in the head. And Yuji hit the Nagata lock for the win. Sonny Ono gave Psychosis 100 pesos in severance pay. Raven cut a promo
Jeez.
about how much 6th grade sucked and how cruel children could be.
Dude, this is an immediate fast forward for me now. I see it on SmackDown every week. I don't need to see it on Nitro.
Who's doing on SmackDown?
Bray!
Ow. Yeah.
At
All I
least
know
he's
is
not in a tree. He took the tree and he made a rocking chair.
Ah.
That's basically what happened.
Well, he went from the tree to
cut down the tree.
Yeah.
he went from the tree to the schoolhouse this time.
Probably had Rowan cut down the tree, to be honest.
All I know is I could have written the line about closing my eyes and pretending to be someone different, and that wasn't a misfit.
This again.
Yeah.
Every week.
Every week. Hey,
Give me a break, Vinny. Come on.
It connects with me. And he said, now the part I did not connect with him when he said, nothing behaved as consistently as a human being bent on destruction. But the message was his childhood sucked, and so he's going to beat people up. Again, it's 10% more coherent than Bray Wyatt's promos, but that 10% makes a big difference.
You should hear some of Vinny and I's conversations on the way home about Vinny's childhood.
Dude,
It's,
I can only imagine.
I should hit record sometime. It's
No.
sad, but almost humorous.
Sure. That is the story of my life. Yeah. Disco Inferno versus Saturn for the TV title.
This went on for a million years.
You know what's funny is
I think I could
Saturn,
have gone to the actual planet of Saturn and back before this match ended.
the first thing I noticed was, dude, this Saturn can hit the ropes.
Sure.
Then, I'm like, this Saturn can throw a fucking cool suplex.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then, I'm like, this Saturn's doing some cool judo.
And he's in really good shape.
And then,
Yes.
I'm like, it's still going.
Right.
And it went about 25 minutes of him beating on Disco Inferno forever.
6:37 to be exact.
Fans chanted ECW, which, by the way, we got boring chants twice and a chant about everything but what's going on in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So 19 years later, nothing has changed.
That's true.
And then he won.
he hit a Disco got a comeback here and there after about 40 minutes. But then Saturn hit about five moves in a row and put him in the rings of Saturn and won. The most decisive championship win in all of 1997.
You know, there's a way to do a showcase match, and they do it all the time with Goldberg.
It's not with this.
And it's not this. Just go quicker.
This was 3 showcase matches in a row.
He literally did all of his moves.
He did. He got all of his shit in. He got his shit in, my shit in, your shit. All shit was in this match. So Saturn wins the TV title in his debut. The Flock hits the ring to do whatever they did that was close to celebrating, and somewhere in there, Raven threw Stevie out of the ring because that's what he does. Okerlund brings Ric Flair out for a promo. He's talking about Kurt Hennig. He makes a hockey reference. He talks about how he's Eric Lindros, because Lindros played in Philadelphia, and I'm going to hit Kurt Hennig like he's Jaromir Jagr. And the only reason I bring this up, Jaromir Jagr was 25 in 1997. He's still playing. He'll never die.
Dude, Flair would still be playing if he could.
That's probably true.
And he was in his 40s here.
That is probably true.
Keep in mind, in the late 80s, they were trying to get rid of Flair because he's too old.
Yes.
And here it's 97, and Flair's talking about how he's got 13 world titles. And the number actually was higher, but the official number that he ended up with was 16.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Which means he's got 3 more coming.
Yep. He's got at least another decade as a full-timer.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's see.
Hall came out.
He said he was going to win World War III. Scott Hall comes out, and this was the point in the show where it started to buffer for me like crazy.
I'll tell you what happened here,
All right.
because I got something to say. First off, he waits forever doing his survey, and then he calls out Larry Zbyszko. He challenges him. Mm-hmm. Scott Hall actually says about Larry Zbyszko, he says, Larry, sit down there in that booth.
Drinking my smoothie distracted Greg.
Not me.
Oh.
All of us, but thank you.
It's a really good smoothie, everyone. It's apple and cherry.
Of all the days to bring a goddamn smoothie over here.
I won't do it again.
So he says, Larry, you just sit your ass there in that booth and you just keep putting yourself over. You and Bruno put yourselves over. And I thought, you know what? Larry Zbyszko puts himself over all the time in the booth. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you one guy who never in history has put himself over. Fucking Bruno Sammartino. Right. Ever. I was appalled. This was a good heel line. He got me. This led to Hall versus Jericho. There's a great moment here, which is so ironic, because Hall is accusing Larry of sitting in the booth and putting himself over. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, damn it, he's right. Goddamn Larry Zbyszko. So the match starts, and Jericho runs wild with kicks, and he knocks Hall on his ass, and then Jericho just stands there. And he's like, get up! And Larry's like, stay on him! What the fuck are you doing? Get on the guy! And I thought, you know what? He's right. This guy is right for once. Right after I was agreeing wholeheartedly that all he ever does in the booth is put himself over. So Jericho gets the award today. He gets the Super Loco Award for being a complete idiot. Because, in fact, he waited there and he let Scott Hall get up, and Scott Hall immediately cut him off and then beat him up for 20 minutes.
Or 2.
Felt like 20, damn it.
Scott went for the outsider's edge, and Jericho turned it into a small package for the win. Huge upset. And then Hall immediately popped up, didn't react to the loss at all, beat the hell out of Jericho, gave him the edge twice to make sure he didn't actually get over. So this accomplished nothing.
Okay, I gotta ask a question. Did Hall honestly think that he was helping these guys?
He says
impossible.
Here's why it's not impossible. If you do it once, then I can understand you're trying to make a point that you'll lay down for somebody and you immediately get your heat back. This is like the 3rd time he's done a job for a random guy and then beat him up afterwards.
Yep.
Nobody gets over. He has to know this, right? Mm-hmm. So why would you do it 3 times?
So you can say that you're laying down for people.
He went on.
Because he wasn't doing it to impress Jericho with his good-naturedness, his self-sacrificing. He was doing it to impress Bischoff, who probably was clueless.
Well, one way or the other, this is the 3rd time, and it's so not working now.
No. So the crowd's chanting for Larry. He goes down to confront Hall. He has a contract he wants Hall to sign, I guess, to wrestle Larry. Hall walks out and walks away, and Larry buries him for being a coward.
Called him a chicken, basically.
Yes. Mike Tenay was back for Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors.
This was amazing timing of this segment, by the way.
Oh, we'll get to it. This is all about moves. They were showing moves so quickly, I had to hit pause to get them all written down. This is La Magistral. This is La Tapatilla. This is the Gory Special. This is a Frog Splash, a Plancha, a Tope, Triple Tope, the Hurricane Rana, the Corkscrew Pescado, the Guillotine Leg Drop, Senton Splash, the Acai Moonsault, 450 Splash, the Corkscrew Plancha, and last but not least, Air Hoovy. And that was it. That was it for Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors. They follow this up with the most traditional of all Lucha Libre matches, the Battle Royal.
That's right.
So, I know this is going to sound offensive, but it's what happened. A bunch of Mexicans came out and started fighting.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody else hear Tim Flowers' voice in your head going, "No bumps in a Battle Royal"?
I do now. They're out there for 3 minutes. Nobody cares. I didn't write down any names. And then out comes the Giant. And as soon as I saw him, I thought, 6 weeks of Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors, and this is the payoff. They're going to kill them all.
Right.
Giant killed them all. Killed the entire division in about a minute. Cut a promo vowing to win World War III, calling out Kevin Nash in particular, says the Battle Royal should come down to just the two of us, and I'll throw you into the crowd and prove I'm the real Giant. 6 weeks of Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors videos to get over the fact that the big guys are better.
Well, to be fair, I think that the Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors was originally designed to get over the mask match at Halloween Havoc. But they had a couple of videos left.
Well, they mistime it.
And they had World War III coming.
Mike Tenay said, I did the voiceovers for this La Magistral and Tapatilla. We're making this video, damn it.
You know, say what you will about Tim, but there's a reason that he said no bumps in the Battle Royal.
I understand.
Yeah.
He didn't want anyone to get hurt.
Not that way.
He just said it over and over and over.
Well,
in
part of the problem,
in defense
Craig,
of Tim,
is he was working with a bunch of fucking
were
idiots.
you with this crew?
Yes,
you had
I
to
was.
tell him things over and over again.
Okay, you're right.
No, Tim was right on that one.
I just remember he said
It is funny.
You know how many times they built that ring upside down, he had to come out? Say, turn that goddamn thing over.
Ric Flair versus Alex. I will say, by the way, in WCW's defense, this show pushed the hell out of that Battle Royal.
It's true.
This Battle Royal in one episode of Nitro had a bigger push than Shawn and Brett going into Survivor Series.
It had a bigger push than the last 10 Royal Rumbles put together.
Yes. They're working like mad to get this Battle Royal over. Ric Flair versus Alex Wright.
Craig,
Best match Alex Wright has had.
if you
in
had
a
not
very long
put
time.
this over, I'd been very angry.
The only thing I had to complain about was Alex Wright's teeny tiny little trunks.
That's his gimmick.
I understand.
Teeny tiny. He's like Marty the Moth. Just
No,
not
he's
so
not.
fat.
No.
Let's talk about
It's
a
a
great
horrible
Ric Flair
comparison.
is. This guy does a back suplex on the floor, going back and forth.
The best thing is, the very first thing that Alex Wright does is chop Ric Flair. This was a mistake.
Well, no, it's what they wanted to do. Here's why this match was great besides the obvious reasons. 90% of Ric Flair matches are great but the same. Mm-hmm. The babyface runs wild for 10 minutes. Heel gets 2 minutes of heat, and they do the finish.
Right.
Ric Flair, who was, for God's sake, the babyface in this match, Ric Flair got in there with Alex Wright and had a 50-50 fight. They were going at it, chopping the piss out of each other, cutting each other off, and suplexes on the floor, chopping each other on the floor, going back and forth, fighting and fighting and fighting. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. So finally, after this went much longer than you would think, but not longer than it needed to go, Flair hits the delayed vertical suplex, puts on the figure four, Alex taps out for goddamn sure the best match of his career. This was awesome in a very surprising way.
I loved it.
It's very good.
I knew I was right about Alex Wright.
No, you're still wrong.
Actually, I never said he was any good. I just enjoy him. It's funny.
And from that match, we go to Ray Traylor versus Steve McMichael.
Not as good.
All right, listen.
No.
I love Mongo, but this was bad. He looked horrible. And it appears his career is all downhill now that he's no longer with the Horsemen.
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Bill Goldberg came out wearing Mongo's ring.
Yeah.
He was wearing Mongo's Super Bowl ring on his pinky.
He's a big feller.
Yeah. Also a football player.
Okay, now, since I know nothing about football, but I know something about wrestling, I'll ask the wrestling question. So was Goldberg a heel?
That's a good
That
question.
is a very good question.
Who is the babyface in the Goldberg-Mongo feud? Is Mongo a heel, but I like him so much I just presume
He
he's
is.
a babyface?
I think Mongo is the babyface because his gold-breaking ex-wife stole his Super Bowl ring and gave it to this big bald guy.
Huh.
And the big bald guy is a big jerk who's keeping the ring he didn't earn.
Now, he wasn't the Horseman, and the Horsemen are usually heels even though they get cheered. So...
It is a gray area.
All I know is Mongo gets distracted at the end of this match by Goldberg, and he gets hit with the Bubba Slam.
the worst one I've ever seen.
Mongo's bump was so horrible. It looked like he was made of metal.
Yep.
Nothing bent.
That is...
He just walked forward like nothing changed. He was just turned sideways and he was dropped on his back and like got pinned.
You know,
He's horrible.
when he went to take the bump, you know how you kind of bend your knees and fall back? You remember your Star Wars figures? They didn't have the knee joint.
That's exactly what I'm
And
talking
his
about.
knees and his legs went straight up in the air
Okay,
and took the bump.
you're right about that. It was as bad as you say, but you're remembering it clearly because it was the finish. I think the side slam Mongo hit right before that may have been worse. All I know is this was a match straight out of the early 1980s WWF with two big oafs lumbering into each other, put on 1990s WCW TV.
They were definitely oafs.
Jeez.
That is a factual statement.
Gene interviewed DDP, who first he bragged about drawing a big pay-per-view audience. Said he's going to win World War III and get a title shot against Hogan. He had a line about where he says, "I'm 6'5" and 250 pounds. I'm not the biggest guy."
Yeah.
I looked this up. The last champion they had who was definitely taller than 6'5" here in 2016, there's guys like Orton and Sheamus who might be right around 6'5", but the last guy definitely bigger than that was JBL in 2005. Wow. Things change.
Got to say that Page was not only a good promo, but he was a believable promo. You believe the guy.
Oh, sure.
Speaking of believable, he made a statement that said Halloween Havoc drew more eyeballs than any other wrestling pay-per-view in history. Brian, you wrote the book. Is that correct?
What match?
The Halloween Havoc pay-per-view.
And what did he say?
It drew more eyeballs than any other wrestling pay-per-view.
More eyeballs?
Did it get more viewers than any pay-per-view up to that point?
I'm not sure because all I know is Starrcade beat it. But it may have up to
It's
that
possible.
point.
Okay.
I don't know. He may have been fibbing, but it's a reasonable lie.
Well, I mean, if he's talking about, what was Halloween Havoc?
Age in the Cage.
Okay.
Ray and Eddie.
I'm thinking about, it's a different match. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I know Starrcade beat it, whatever it did.
Okay.
Public Enemy versus the Steiners in a street fight.
This was a mess.
Okay, I have a question.
You bet.
Steiners came out wearing the tag team belts. Mm-hmm. Didn't Scott Hall have a belt when he came out earlier?
Steiners are the champions, but they had that bullshit deal where Larry counted, and so I think the outsiders are making their own belts.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's what I wanted to say about this match here. This is not WCW's fault, because they did not anticipate that in 19 years some fucking geek would be watching their show on an iPhone turned sideways.
Yes! That same thing I was going through.
They did the split screen gimmick because they're brawling all over, and they have to make sure that the giant WCW Monday Nitro logo's on the screen. And so it's not like you take the screen and you cut it in half 50-50.
No.
No. It's maybe 25% for one of the screens and 25% for the other screen. I'm watching it on my iPhone, and it's dark. I had absolutely no idea what was going on, with the exception of the announcers did a very good job telling me that it seemed to be very exciting.
To be fair, even though you were watching it that way, you missed absolutely nothing.
I was told, because I was watching on the phone as well, because the buffering, I had to switch to my phone, it worked better there. And I'm looking at two screens, neither of which is more than an inch square.
Seriously, like 2 quarters.
Yeah. That's how big it was. It's smaller than that, actually. It was like watching two icons on your iPhone. I was told Rocco Rock jumped off the stage or the set or something.
Yep.
I believe that.
Somebody got hit with a beer.
I believe that.
Eventually, they got down to the ring. We got back to one giant screen for about a minute, the last minute of the match. Here's the finish. They set up two tables on the floor, one on top of each other. They put Rick Steiner between the two tables.
Mm-hmm.
Rocco Rock, I believe, went to the top rope.
Johnny Grunge.
Johnny Grunge goes to the top rope. DiBiase walks over. I don't know if DiBiase was supposed to pull Steiner out of the way, or if he was late, or Steiner was confused.
Don't know.
But Johnny Grunge comes off the top and goes to these tables, and Rick Steiner was not all the way out of the way.
Right.
And he comes up bleeding from the neck.
Badly.
This is a bad place to bleed from. It's pouring everywhere. So Rick immediately pins Grunge on the floor. As he's pinning him, he's looking over his brother, making sure his brother is still alive. Mm-hmm. Ref counts 3. Rick gets the hell out of there, stopping to kick Public Enemy several times before on his way out, just in case he died and never got a chance to kick them again.
You might not have seen this, but as they were pulling away with the camera, because they're about to go to commercial right after this match, you see Scott Steiner at ringside losing his mind, throwing chunks of table into the ring and stomping on whoever was below him.
Uh-huh. I don't think Public Enemy was long for his WCW at this point.
Welcome to WCW, everybody.
I'm lucky they got out of the match
Let's just
alive.
do a bunch of dangerous shit.
To the Steiners.
Yeah, that's
This is dumb.
asinine.
All right. This was a disaster. Speaking of, for like 2 hours now, we got nothing but World War III hype videos. And I was actually starting to get excited for this match. And you got the World War III hype video. Here's what I saw in this World War III hype video. Tons of split screens. Ron Reese. Road Block. And eventually Giant getting the win.
Cool.
It always sounds cool on paper, and then they deliver, and it's like, this is wretched.
I've been talking for 19 years about how horrible Battle Royals are, and nobody ever listens to me.
And they did it 3 times in one match.
This was the worst. It is literally just doing 3 battle royals at once.
Yeah.
Which is...
Can you imagine? 60 guys.
The fact they tried...
The sheer number of geeks in a 60-man battle royal is astonishing.
I can forgive them for trying it one time. But it was clearly a failure, but they just kept doing it.
Right.
Let's talk about Michael Buffer. I wrote it down this week, but only one. I wrote down one line. Because of the way that he said it. Kurt Hennig is coming down to the ring, and Michael Buffer calls him. Or this is what he says about him. This is a quote. He is the self-proclaimed greatest athlete of all in the world.
Yeah. No, Michael Buffer wasn't a very good writer, Brian.
He is the self-proclaimed greatest athlete of all in the world. Why do we have to add in the world?
It does seem overly qualified, doesn't
Why do we have to add of all?
it? Either or would have been fine.
Why do we put it together in this fucking order? No one cares but me.
Has anyone ever done the book there's just Michael Buffer's ring intros?
Oh, man, it'd make millions.
Unfortunately, you have to share it with Michael Buffer.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of it with Michael Buffer. Anyway, the main event was Kurt Hennig and Lex Luger. Wasn't much.
Actually, I'll talk about my 2 favorite things. First off, I got to give Luger credit, because I've been noticing that nobody gives a shit when Roman Reigns sells, because he has no ability to get sympathy. Lex Luger did a good job getting sympathy. Mm-hmm. He had a great, sad face when he was selling, and he really got the people behind him. The other thing is, very early on, they did the old, they're going to go for a reversal, but one of the guys forgets, and so he just lets go and runs backwards into the corner, and it's Luger that runs backwards into the corner. And so Kurt Hennig, the spot got fucked up, so he has to figure out, what the hell am I going to do? So he pauses for a split second. Luger's in the corner. And then he runs at the guy. I guess hoping Lex is going to do something. And sure enough, Lex does. He clotheslines the guy. And Kurt Hennig's natural reaction is to do a fucking flip and land right on his head, right in the corner.
So brutal.
Yeah.
That was the only good thing about the match.
Yeah.
Well, there was a third good thing. When Lex finally made his comeback, as noted, people were into it, and we teased the rack, they all went nuts. Hennig grabbed the ropes and pulled them both to the floor, and then Flair ran in out of nowhere to kill Hennig for the DQ. Flair chased Hennig away. Luger was upset with Flair because he had lost because of him, and they bickered, and that's how the show went off the air.
I'm stunned you did not note the actual finish. Hennig goes for the U.S. title outside. This is after they tumbled outside. And Flair comes and starts chopping the shit out of him. And the bell rings.
Oh, yeah.
So they go back into the ring, and Luger puts him in the rack, and Ric Flair runs and punches Kurt Hennig, who is in the rack,
Right.
and the ref calls for the bell. Now, Mike Tenay cannot just let this go. Mike Tenay has to say, we already heard the bell. Thus revealing that the bell ringer jumped the gun and rang the bell when he wasn't supposed to.
Yes, because the only time you can get disqualified is if the assault happens in the ring.
Well, not necessarily. You should be able to get...
No, that's what we've determined in 1997.
Well, one way or the other, they fucked up the end of this show. Did. Not a very good Nitro. Now let me talk about the beginning of Nitro, because I got to tie it into the end of Raw. So that's what happened at the end of Raw.
Right.
That disaster. Nitro begins with the NWO and Bischoff and Hogan. They all come out and they've got Canadian flags. The announcers cannot figure out why. Why in the world do they have Canadian flags?
They don't have $1.99 a minute.
So first, Bischoff teases that he's going to introduce Brett, but instead he calls out Kevin Nash. Nash comes out and he cuts a promo. Anyway, I'll let Vinny recap all of that, but the point of this is, Bischoff is so goddamn cocky at this moment in the ring with all of these guys. And it's so easy to see why. He had Starrcade coming up, Hogan versus Sting. Everybody knew this was going to be their biggest pay-per-view of all time, by miles, which it was. They just raided Bret Hart from WWE, WWF. That fucking company is in shambles. You watch Raw every week and it's a disaster with a few shining bright lights, but it's largely disaster. They appear to be on the edge of collapse. They're losing in the ratings war every single week. Their biggest star is Steve Austin, who the doctors have told, dude, you really shouldn't be wrestling. Your neck's fucked up and you should retire. But Austin doesn't give a fuck, and it's 1997, so they just let the guy wrestle. I mean, you can imagine why Bischoff thought, dude, I'm like months away from putting this fucking company out of business.
Yeah.
And he's getting so goddamn cocky.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they keep out with for a promo with all the flags everywhere. Nash comes out for the first time in, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, somewhere around there. Makes some goofy jokes, and he addresses the Giant. And I actually love this. He says, I would love to beat up the Giant. So Giant, I am challenging you to face me in World War III. Not on the show. In the match.
Yeah.
With 58 other dudes in the way. That was like the best heel line I've ever heard in my life right there. That was awesome. And then Bischoff gets his moment in the sun. This had to be the peak of his professional career right here. Spending a billionaire's money to surround himself with talent. Makes a joke about Bret punching out Vince McMahon, mentioning Bret by name, which has the announcers, did he just say Bret Hart? Did he just say Bret Hart's name? Elizabeth plays a band leader. They all sing "Oh Canada" terribly.
Ugh.
It was so bad they started over. It didn't get any better. And finally, the outright said, Bret Hart is the newest member of the NWO. And the announcers are baffled, A, that Bret is being associated with Nitro at all, B, that a guy who grew up in the business and stood for tradition would join the NWO. They go to break. They go to the announcers. The announcers make it clear. I don't think they actually mentioned what had happened the night before, but they did say Bret Hart is no quitter. He will never give up. Said that over and over again. So Gene's there. He says to the crowd, once again, Bret has joined the NWO. For more news, call my hotline, including tips about a backstage confrontation between Bret Hart and an opposing promoter.
Must have made so goddamn much money.
How come he said an opposing promoter where they blatantly have given spoilers on their show mentioning by name, and now it's an opposing promoter?
Maybe Heyman was backstage. I don't know.
Maybe they thought if we say Vince, like everyone will know the story. But by not saying Vince's name, everyone presumes it's Vince, but they're not sure, and so they got a call to find out for sure.
That makes sense. Best answer I got.
I mean, dude, Gene made a lot of money on that goddamn hotline.
Sure.
He knew what he was doing.
Steve Regal and Dave Taylor versus Harlem Heat.
How was this bad?
Everything was going fine, and then it all turned in an instant. Booker T goes up top. Stevie Ray takes the ref. And then time freezes. Nothing happens for like 10 seconds. Thinking about it now, I think Taylor was supposed to knock him off the ropes and forgot the spot. Eventually, Booker jumped, Regal dodged, and the Englishman hit some moves on Stevie Ray and pinned him. No one will ever brag about this match.
There was a moment where I was watching this and I thought, this is a pretty fun little match right here. And then no sooner should I speak than it just fell apart. Like, it just fell apart. And Regal and Taylor were just going to keep going. They didn't care. They just kept wrestling. And then Taylor grabbed the guy and suplexed him and held him down and won. It was a mess. But a hilarious mess.
They showed Saturn beating Disco Inferno for the TV title last week. Then we got Disco Inferno versus Chris Jericho. I love Jericho paying tribute to his dad by pulling Disco's shirt over his head for a hockey fight. That was great.
Did his dad marry Gail Kim?
No.
Oh, it's a chef.
Yeah, Irvine the chef. Irvine the hockey player is a completely different fella.
I'm just fucking around, you two numbskulls. I'm trying to bring some levity to this fucking show. Unlike the brevity of this match.
So,
is there anything more distracting than editing in Chris Jericho's current music?
It's astonishing.
Oh,
drives
I'll tell
me
you.
nuts.
I'll tell you what's more distracting when your son comes in and goes, "Where's his list?"
Oh, God.
Oh, there you go.
And can you believe of all the moves that they gave Disco Inferno for a finisher, he's got the Stone Cold Stunner?
Yeah,
Of course.
Like, what?
So Jericho wins with the Lion Tamer. As Disco is leaving, Kidman throws a soda in his face. So badass Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilberti, yanks Kidman over the guardrail and drops him with a stunner on the floor. The Flock jumps the rail to beat him up. Scotty Riggs in an eye patch runs out to make the save. Raven pulls his men off Riggs, and the fight just stops and everyone backs away slowly. Barbarian versus Glacier.
Man, this was the first one tonight that was like UFC 1. We got a barbarian, and we got a karate guy.
A ninja.
Having a fight. And the best part of this is, in the middle of this match, the karate guy, whose gimmick is he does a lot of kicks and flips, he decides, I'm going to do a double overhook on the barbarian.
Yeah, a double overhook belly-to-belly suplex.
And I'm going to suplex him. And the barbarian landed right on his goddamn head. Now, I've seen people look like they've landed on their head, but they didn't really land on their head. It's an illusion. This barbarian landed right on top of his goddamn head. And I know that because not only did I see it with my own eyes, but the barbarian began to sell his head.
Yeah,
He probably wasn't selling.
The barbarian has never sold his head in his whole career. So as soon as he fell down and grabbed his head, I thought, oh my God, he's dead. He's holding his head. But instead, he leaped up a second later and took this guy's head off with a clothesline. And then they went to the finish here. But why in the world was Glacier doing a double overhook overhead belly-to-belly suplex?
I don't know.
Fair question.
On the barbarian.
I don't know. So Glacier won with his kick. Oh, Jimmy Hart ran out and got a huge ovation because they were in Memphis, and then he got kicked off the apron. And Glacier kicked Barbarian and pinned him. And then Meng hits the ring during the light show and puts the Tongan death grip on Glacier.
God, it was awesome.
You know what this is leading to?
You know what happens when the...
Glacier versus Meng?
I never have siblings in the class and we do the grappling game. If somebody ever beats one of the siblings, I always have the other sibling come in and I tell them, you got to get revenge for your brother.
Wow.
They were beaten by this guy. Yeah, it turned into a martial arts movie. But the point is, the barbarian gets beaten, but then the lights go out and his fucking partner's right there to take out the karate guy.
Sure.
Just like every martial arts movie.
It is, actually.
And the screen goes blank as Meng is going, it's awesome.
I do love in the Faces of Fear. You had
And there wasn't a lot awesome on this show.
Faces of Fear, you got two guys who look similar, work similar size, but they always made it very clear, this one is the scariest guy in the world. The other guy is very, very scary, but this one over here is very scary. Raven comes out for a promo. He apologizes for the damage he has done to Scotty Riggs' eye, saying very insincerely, I'm sorry, it was an accident, I feel your pain. He's going off about how his childhood was tortured, he had been picked on and beaten, and bullied, and that dick Tony Schiavone says, I can see why. Oh, all right. So Raven explains he has surrounded himself with the dregs of society to take revenge on the world, and at this point, Van Hammer debuted in his transvestite prostitute look. We had a Mongo Goldberg video package. Yuji Nagata versus Alex Wright.
By the way, does anything kill the reputation of Raven for being a smart guy, like hiring Van Hammer for the fucking flock?
Could not have been his choice.
Van Hammer?
Who had a fishnet top
Yeah.
with a hole cut in it around his nipple, and his nipple was pierced.
To emphasize,
Yes.
I have a pierced nipple. To go with his silver lipstick and whatever way he'd done to his eyes.
Rouge?
I'm not sure.
I don't know what they put around the eyes.
Yuji Nagata versus Alex Wright.
Imagine this match.
The highlight of this was Yuji hitting a superplex and Sonny Beans who slapped the mat and shout, "It's over!" I don't know why. That amused me. So Alex is making his comeback. Sonny Ono hands Deborah a big wad of cash. Then he forcibly kisses her. She slaps him, and this somehow leads to Yuji winning with a Nagata lock. A mess. Hogan and Bischoff came out again. They held up a poster that indicated Sting had found himself a small part in a movie. How dare Sting try to break into Hulk Hogan's industry?
It's actually very clever because they found a way to plug a Sting movie,
Right.
even though Sting is their most hated enemy. They had the poster out there.
And Sting doesn't talk.
The Real Reason Men Commit Crimes was the name of this classic Oscar winner, if I recall correctly. And yeah, under the guise of claiming they were upset that Sting was trying to break into the man's industry, they plugged the shit out of his movie.
And what I got from this poster, it says the real reason men commit crimes, and there is a chesty woman on the poster.
The answer
Well, that
to
about answers it.
The answer to that is apparently cleavage. Yeah, so they did this, and then nothing happened. And then they go to the announcers who shrug, and they go back to Hogan and Bischoff who are standing there. Then they go back to the announcers who shrug again, and it goes to break. Live TV. Mike Tenay also plugged Sting's movie. Chris Benoit versus Saturn.
Best 2 minutes of wrestling I watched this week.
Dude, all you need to know is it did go 2 minutes, and all of a sudden the bell rang, and Tony Schiavone says, "What the hell are they ringing the bell for? I have no idea." I don't either.
Okay, well, let me explain. This is a great 1 minute and 59 seconds. But then they did the finish. Saturn squats on Benoit and grabs the rope, pinning him with the ropes for leverage. Nick Patrick drops to his belly. He checks that Benoit's shoulders are down for a second or two. And then he counts 1, and he counts 2, and he counts 3. It was a 3 count.
And it was that cadence.
How did we all miss it?
I didn't.
I did.
I saw it
didn't
very
miss
clearly.
I saw this. This was a pinfall, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Goddamn
So they keep
Mandela effect.
They keep fighting. Patrick is calling for the bell. The bell ringer won't ring it. That didn't help things.
Right.
That might have been why.
Yeah.
It was a delayed bell
The
ring.
bell ringer was as confused as anyone else. And then the flock hits the ring and they start brawling. I assume they were supposed to hit the ring for the DQ. Well, that would explain why Saturn was on top.
You know
I
what,
don't,
though?
I don't know what happened.
You know what? Let's just say that everything you said happened,
No, it did.
because it didn't happen in my timeline or Tony Schiavone's. Let's just say that happened, and your lead announcer on national television says, "What the hell are they ringing the bell for? I have no idea."
Right.
Shouldn't someone in the truck cue up the finish
Sure.
so that they can show a replay and find out what the hell happened here? Because they didn't do it, and then they do all of the post-match. There's no replay. And as they go to commercial, Tony Schiavone says, and I quote, "Boy, this is weird."
Oh, God. Oakland brings Ric Flair out for a promo. Flair vows to win World War III, disable Kurt Hennig, and beat Lex Luger tonight. He threatened to break Hennig's legs, arms, eyes, neck, and soul. Calls out Hogan, Savage, Nash, Hall, Bagwell, and Orton, says it makes no difference to him. Finally repeats again his promise to win World War III, and then says he and Gene will have a party with the Nitro Girls. That party sounds awesome.
So he entered that contest. Can you imagine Flair's VHS?
Yes.
They couldn't show it on TV.
Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio.
It's just his knob.
Excuse me?
Just send it in.
His VHS pick
Yeah.
was just a dick pic.
Yeah,
Okay.
a video.
Oh.
That's worse. And Anyway, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio had a great match. They were doing stuff the announcers had never seen before. I had no idea how to call.
hadn't.
Yeah.
There was some wacky spot where Ray did a round off, and then he bounced in. He sprung to the air, landed on his back on the top rope, and teetered precariously.
Right.
But then tipped over, and like Eddie caught him on his shoulder, and then Ray spun around into an arm drag.
Yes.
There were two spots where it was like, if 99% of the people tried this, it would be a disaster.
Exactly
but these
what I
two
read.
guys are so fucking good that they made both of them work.
Yeah.
That was one of those things. Ray probably tried it for the first time here and then went, I'm not doing that again.
That's possible. So Ray goes for the West Coast pop, but Eddie catches him, falls backwards, nicks him on the ropes. Ray sells this like death. Paralysis and death. He's laying on his side as Eddie hits a frog splash, then Eddie cradles him and pins him. Eddie is the new Cruiserweight champion. Dean Malenko runs out to have a stare down with Eddie, and Ray was selling like it was a severe injury all the way through the break.
Good match.
Yes.
It was a very good match. Not Halloween Havoc,
No.
but very good.
Ray Traylor versus Randy Savage. This is every Randy Savage WCW match. He sells and 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 he sells. Cuts the guy off, hits a body slam with a big elbow and wins.
Cool.
He and Liz spray painted Boss Man as well.
Well, first off, he hit him with 4 fucking elbows.
Yeah, that's true.
Nearly killed the poor guy. Everybody cheers because the NWO's cool. No one cares about Big Bubba. Goes nuts, kills a referee. I guess for some reason now Liz is like totally in the NWO. She wants to spray paint guys and stuff like that. So
Yeah, you don't believe a thing she's doing.
There
And
was
then-
a point in this match where she had the biggest smile on her face I've ever seen.
they completely obliterate Big Bubba. And as they're going to the break, Tony Schiavone says, "We have just received word that the decision has been reversed, and Big Bubba is your winner." I was like, why did you bother?
I don't know. People were taking meticulous records.
Randy put him over.
Tony didn't want the people at DDT Digest to get confused. Kurt Hennig versus Dallas Page. Having one of Hennig's better WCW matches. He is bumping and selling forever early. He makes a comeback and goes right after the ribs, and so everyone's into it. Page makes his comeback, and he's punching the snot out of him, and everyone goes crazy. And Hennig hits a random belt shot for the DQ. Lame.
There were so many lame finishes on this show. This was another one.
I know I undersell how popular DDP is, but when they're chanting DDP during this match, the crowd, it was thunderous.
Oh, yeah. He was a huge star.
Hey, you know what? This DDP, he dragged a good match out of Kurt Hennig. The same thing that Benoit did. Hennig, at this point in his career, if you're not going to drag a good match out of him, he's just going to go through the motions and take a couple of wacky bumps and just sort of have a match. But if you're determined to drag a match out of him, you can get a good match out of the guy. And that's what Benoit did, and that's what DDP did here.
Ric Flair versus Lex Luger. It was every Ric Flair-Lex Luger match you ever saw, and that is in no way a complaint.
By the way, why'd they do this match?
Last week, Lex was wrestling Hennig, and
Right.
Flair interfered to attack Hennig, but in doing so, he cost Lex a shot at the U.S. title.
Okay, I remember now.
Okay. So you get 1,000 chops, 1,000 no-sells, the figure four, the long struggle, the reversal, the rope break. Lex begins his comeback by no-selling and flexing his pecs, as if he knows in his head, as long as he still has his pecs, everything's going to be okay. Hits a superplex and a power slam, and he calls for the torture rack, and Kurt Hennig hits the ring, and it's a lame DQ.
God, these finishes were horrible.
Back-to-back matches in the same program. The only good thing about this, well, actually the match is fun until the finish, Lex presses Flair over his head, but Hennig re-enters the ring, so Lex tosses Flair onto Hennig, which is fine with Flair, because he hates Hennig more anyway.
Right.
And he's thrown onto him, and he immediately transitions to full mount and starts punching the snot out of him. It was great.
What I liked was, so they do the rack, or they set up for the rack, Hennig runs out. You just hear the air go out of the crowd.
Yep.
Like, fuck, another stupid finish. And once again, this time it's Mike Tenay. Mike Tenay says, why did he run out there with the U.S. Championship belt? Every week, the announcers have less and less of a clue. What in the hell is going on? They're baffled by everything.
Were they just booking on the fly?
Yeah! That's not even the problem. It's like booking on the fly with shit that doesn't make sense. It was bad.
Main event segment, It took about 10 minutes. I will summarize. Bischoff and Hogan came out to call out Sting one more time. Sting obliged, came to fight, but then like a dummy, threw his bat away. And as soon as he threw his bat away, the NWO came down to beat him up, and nobody came out to make the save, and that's how Nitro ended.
Boom!
It's bad.
It was, hey,
poor.
At least they got some heat on Sting for once. I should note that after all of these months, and we finally find out that Sting is part of WCW and he wants to take out NWO and Hulk Hogan, not one friend runs in to help the guy.
No.
His ass is handed to him, he's all alone, and he's just left like a geek.
I figured it'd be the Giant,
Nope.
Luger, Flair, any
None
of
of
them. No. Page. No one cared.
Bischoff did commentary, annoying commentary. Hogan screamed that he was God, and that's how the show went off the air. This was not a good show.
No.
Neither of them were.
I have no interest in World War III.
No.
We are at war.
WCW Monday Nitro 114, also November 17th, 1997. The NWO comes out for a promo, and if that sounds familiar, I swear to God the announcers outright said, "This is the exact same way the show opened up last week." The show is just a rerun now. Mm-hmm. Crowd demanded Sting. Scott Hall did his survey. Barry Larry Zbyszko. Nash finally explained why he and Scott Hall were still wearing tag titles. They said when the Steiners claimed to have won the belts, I was out and Six was subbing for me. Therefore, that match does not count. We are still the rightful champs. Fine. He said if Giant wanted to call himself the true giant of wrestling, that was fine, because unlike being big and being Quasimodo, he was content being 6'10" and sexy. Again, made fun of a guy for being too big.
Well, I can tell you it's not a colon.
Google that.
No. Nor will I do image shirts. They brought out Hulk Hogan.
colon. Oh, Craig, damn it.
Foiled again.
You fucker.
No, this is more fun. I'll listen to Brian.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's called Greater Than.
That said that.
But
Let's not go back to the colon.
it's also known as Strict Inequality.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be a good name for a band.
That's what I was looking for.
So Hulk Hogan came out to Jimi Hendrix knockoff music.
Oh, this is going to be the new one that's going to drive me crazy.
I'm sure when it's...
Oh, yeah.
If Jericho's music wasn't maddening enough,
Yeah.
this ripoff.
It's funny because they've played the Hendrix tune before, and they just now decided to pipe in other music.
Can't they just play like Real American? Would that not be the same effect?
That would be worse.
There was an episode like a month ago where Hogan's coming out and he's mouthing the lyrics, chopped it down with the edge of my hand, and they were playing the NWO theme.
Well,
And for this, they decided to make a wacky...
they should have played
Remake.
the new Wolfpack theme. That's way better. Go ahead.
So Hulk introduces Rick Rude, who walks out on stage, and Tony Schiavone, I can only say he exclaimed this. Holy smokes! So Rude now being on Raw and Nitro at the same time. He says Shawn Michaels should...
He interrupted you, Vince.
There's a first.
Yeah. Here we go.
You want me to do this?
Yeah, do it.
All right. So Rude says Shawn Michaels should never claim to be champion.
Wolfpack is back, causing mass destruction.
He had never beaten Bret Hart.
The bad boys of wrestling.
Vince McMahon should never have told a ref to ring a bell to rob Bret of his title.
You have no rhythm.
I'm not trying to.
Don't know you're gonna find out the Wolfpack. Here to prove a point. Number one, just believe that you don't.
All right.
Bunch of 40-year-old men bobbing their head.
The Wolfpack theme. What could be cooler than that?
Can't believe the DX song debuted last week and you didn't play it, but this week you played the Wolfpack theme. For no reason.
You know the damn DX theme?
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
I might scream along. So, Vince says, or Rude says, Vince should never have told a ref to ring a bell to rob Bret of his title. But it's the right time for Bret to abandon the Titanic and swim to the NWO. He promised the NWO would beat up Sting like they did last week, but this time he would be there to join in. Hogan cut a promo, ran his mouth for a while.
They think you can tell us what to do.
Did he not ask, Craig?
No, I'm not mad.
He did ask.
I did ask. I am not mad.
There's nothing better than Apple Music.
You know this guy just died recently?
I did hear that.
The
Sad.
singer.
Yeah.
Better get ready.
He did this and Xbox theme and
Bow to the master.
this theme live.
Break it down.
Okay, Vinny, now do the review.
Hulk Hogan said, not that. Spring has sprung. Sting has been stung.
Hey, that's not bad.
It worked. He said this in November, by the way.
You can only see Vinny right now.
Song's so awesome. I'm trying so hard not to sing.
Hey, during the-
Degeneration!
Okay, yeah, we'll do that during the Christmas show, Vinny. I can't handle it right now. I'm way too sober.
Anyway, that's it. That's all that happened in this opening promo.
Right.
Where are we? What happened?
Nothing. The opening promo is all we talked about.
Oh, Rick Rude came out.
Yeah.
I did like where Rude cut a promo on Sting. He's still bitter about that whole stage thing.
Yeah, but ending his career.
Ended his career.
I hadn't thought about that until right
Come
now.
on, dude, get over it.
I thought you were going to talk about the Dangerous Alliance, but no, that's much worse. Get over it.
Hey, he was training for a comeback when he died. He made his money, and then he was going to come back.
Yeah. Gene Okerlund brought Ray Traylor out for a promo. Ray explained. Let me tell you how this segment went.
Oh, this was amazing.
Ray says, I am not afraid to fight anyone face-to-face one-on-one, but the NWO wants to jump me as a gang from behind. At exactly that moment, the NWO jumped him as a gang from behind, proving his point.
You're missing a key to this. He said, I don't want any sympathy. I turned on WCW and went with the NWO, and I'll just deal with whatever's coming to me. And sure as shit, they were like, okay, well, we're going to beat your ass. And no one came out to help him, just like he'd authorized in his promo.
Glacier versus Meng.
It was amazing to watch him not catch Cornette and then watch him do this. It's like you can imagine that this show took place 3 days after the scaffold, and then Cornette had sicked these guys.
Cornette paid off the NWO.
Yeah.
Beat this guy's ass.
Yeah.
My knee hurts. So Glacier is kind of amazing. When he is doing choreographed kung fu spots, his strikes look awesome. When he is wrestling and calling on the fly and trying to throw punches at ad-libbing, oh my God, they're terrible. And I say that having watched my own punches just before the show started, those were worse. But Glacier sucked. So he makes his comeback, Glacier does. Jimmy Hart calls for help. Before the help can get there, Meng gets the tongue in death grip and wins.
That's not quite correct. They're battling, and first off, there was this great spot where Meng just runs right through a clothesline. Like Glacier goes for a clothesline, and he hits Meng, but Meng just runs right through it, and then just kind of goes, ah, like he does. And the big payoff for that no-sell spot is Glacier then kicks him, and he takes a bump.
Right.
What a spot!
No, the spot that would have been spectacular is Meng doing a somersault senton onto nobody.
So Jimmy Hart calls out the Barbarian.
Thank you for.
I don't even remember that
stepping
spot.
up. Yeah, he did a flip and tried to do a senton onto Glacier. I've never seen Meng do this ever.
Well, you know, there's a first time for everything.
Oh, as King Tonga, he was flying all over the place.
It's true.
So Jimmy Hart calls out the Barbarian, and the Barbarian comes out. Meng puts a death grip on Glacier. Barbarian gets in the ring, and the ref still just does the finish with the second man in the ring.
Yeah.
Barbarian was either too fast or too slow or something. And we can confirm that Meng is tougher than the Barbarian.
Because he beat up Glacier.
And Glacier beat Barbarian last week.
So they beat up Glacier until Ernest Miller showed up to make the save. This was so awesome. Ernest Miller is clearing the ring. He wipes out Jimmy Hart using the power of his chi. He attempts to do the same thing to Meng, but Meng has no time for this bullshit and puts the death grip on him and chokes him out. That's right. DDP did a quick promo saying he did not understand why Brett would want to be in the NWO.
That's fair.
It really is a good question. Alex Wright versus Steve McMichael.
Oh boy.
Now, Craig,
Yes, sir.
you watched this days ago,
Oh yeah.
and I got a text from you. I should look
My
it up.
nose just started leaking snot spontaneously.
Awesome, Brian.
I got a text from Craig basically, I forget what it said, but it implied there was a amazingly hysterical bump from Mongo in this match.
Right.
And we wouldn't believe it when we saw it. 99 times out of 100, when you get something like this and then you watch the match, it won't live up to the hype.
Right.
This was the 100th time. Alex Wright is unloading strikes on Mongo.
Uppercuts, to be exact.
He goes to hit
European uppercut.
one big final European uppercut to close off this flurry. Mongo takes this uppercut, and I can only describe it as
Please try.
he sold this punch by imitating a salmon swimming upstream.
I was going to say a dolphin
But he
leaping out of the sea.
Vinny is closer.
he jumped straight up as high as he could. He
Wiggled.
He locked his arms into his sides. He wiggled his head back and forth, and somehow came down on his back.
Well, he came down on his ass and then his back.
I guess.
And then whacked his head on the back of the mat.
I laughed, and I rewound, and I laughed, and I rewound. I tried to figure out what the hell was going through his head when he decided to do this.
There is a GIF on my Twitter. Check out Proper Jam. You'll find me there.
You know, I went with Whitney this Saturday to a stream where salmon were spawning. And Vinny is absolutely correct. It looked exactly like this.
Was Mongo there? In the water? Please tell me
I didn't see him.
Please tell me Mongo was in the water.
You kidding me?
So Mongo made his comeback and mauled Alex like a bear. A drunken bear, to be precise. He threw down the ref and got DQ'd. There's about 84 DQs in these two shows. Deborah left just disappointed in everyone as far as I could tell.
Well,
Chris Jericho versus Rey Mysterio Jr.
You know what this match was? It was really good.
you know what this match was? This was Chris Jericho playing big tough guy.
It was.
Yeah.
You're both right, and I'll also say that what this match was for about 3 minutes was two guys botching everything, but still making it look good.
It was amazing how many things they botched but saved.
Yes!
Nowadays, I don't want to make fun of Sasha and Charlotte, but man,
I was so certain he was going to say Dolph.
He lost tonight.
he did. To the Miz.
Oh.
Yeah.
That whole storyline, now he's just lost to the Miz again?
Yeah.
Vinny's tore up.
I think what's going on is I do think that Miz will then lose to Sammy, and then Kalisto will
Sure.
beat Kendrick, and so
just-
all of the cruiserweights will go to SmackDown.
Exactly.
And I think in their minds, it's better to have Miz be the epic failure than Dolph.
But Dolph just epic failed.
Well, he did, but he didn't lose the belt to the other brand.
Not on
That's a
pay-per-view.
bigger failure.
Not on pay-per-view.
Anyway, getting back to this match here, Charlotte and Sasha, like they'd fuck things up, and then it was all done.
Yeah.
They just were done. These guys fucked stuff up and tried to turn it into something cooler,
And they did.
and it worked.
So, yes, Chris Jericho was playing. I was trying to think of a good power wrestler to compare him to. I went with the Steiners.
I'd go with Goldberg
Sure.
because he did a press slam off the top rope.
Yeah.
Which, in fact, I cannot remember ever seeing in any other match.
There's a reason for that. It's scary as hell. But Jericho did a press slam off the top rope. He did a bunch of power bombs, a triple power bomb, a bunch of backbreakers. And
He did a great suplex where he lifted him up for a vertical, held him up there, and then did like a little bit of a squat,
Yeah.
and then thrust himself into the air so that Ray shot up into the air, and then they did the suplex. I'd never seen that before either.
And they go to the finish, and Jericho goes for a triple power bomb. The crowd's never seen anything like this before, and they're going ballistic. But on the third lift, Ray slips out, runs, jumps off the ropes, hits the West Coast pop for the win.
He actually jumped from the ground to the top rope to a half turn to a springboard Hurricane Rana. I liked this match.
It was a very good match, and the last 20 seconds were unreal.
And it wasn't even the best match on this show.
Chris Benoit did a promo about how Brett was a great role model, but it was hard to see how he fit with the NWO.
Can you believe in
promo
storyline, every single one of these geeks just believes Brett's going to the NWO?
Yeah, that too. All the WCW babyfaces are stupid. Eric Bischoff hit the announce desk to harass Zbyszko, eventually lured Zbyszko into chasing him. And of course, the B-teamers all zoomed in to kill Larry.
Allow me to praise Eric Bischoff here. Here's in Karate Kid.
Sure.
Everyone's seen Karate Kid. It's at a certain age. The original. Eric Bischoff was a great heel karate guy.
Yeah.
He had the fancy spin kicks just to be a dick.
I think he had the same haircut.
Yeah, you can't just kick the guy.
What's the name of their crew?
Johnny.
Yes.
The Skeletors?
No.
I don't remember what their gang name.
Cobra Kai.
The
Thank
Cobra
you.
Kai. How
Thank you.
the fuck did I forget that? But anyway, Bischoff was Johnny from the Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
And he does the wacky spin kick and lays the guy out. And first off, he's a great fake karate guy heel, but he really did do martial arts. And it was amazing because in the middle of this brawl, you got to imagine this. There's Eric Bischoff, there's Larry Zbyszko, and there's all of the NWO. So there's like 6-7 bodies all over the place. A fan
Oh my gosh.
jumps the rail and goes after Eric. So he's the 8th body. And somehow Bischoff just sidesteps the guy like a ninja.
Yeah.
In the middle of this. I was like, that was really fucking impressive.
And
You
then-
would have beat Vince McMahon.
And then Scott Norton gets his hands on the fan. God help him.
Well, yeah. See, Bischoff sidesteps and the fan does a face plant, and Scott Norton steps forward with bad intentions. And I got so giddy.
Yes.
And then sadly, security corralled him and let Scott know it's okay, we got him. Damn it. Do
Well,
you know?
Norton had a gimmick leg at the time, so I don't know how much of a beating he could have laid on this guy.
Oh, I think
I do.
I mean, he still could have laid a beating.
I will take one-legged Scott Norton over this fan.
Well, that's true.
crushed his head like a zit.
And Larry did a great job selling those Cobra Kai kicks. He was a great...
Larry was great here. This is a
Yeah.
great angle. Yeah. And you're right. Actually, you're actually right about Bischoff in that he's annoying enough and small enough that you want to see him get beat up and you believe the baby faces will beat him up. But when he does have his offense, it still looks good. You think, yeah, if that guy kicked me in the ribs like that would suck.
He's no Shane McMahon.
He is. No. He'd kick Shane's ass too. Viano 4 versus Diamond Dallas Page.
Right.
That's
Did you notice this too?
That's how it was announced, although Viano 5 did all the actual wrestling. Viano 4 did plentiful interference, including a top rope knee drop in the middle of this match.
Roman numerals, Brian.
Page did a pescado.
I once worked these men, Craig.
I understand.
can tell them apart.
Yeah? What if they switch gear on you?
Anyway,
I stumped him.
Page is double teamed for a while, hits a pescado onto both of them, calls for the diamond cutter, hits it, wins, hits another one on the other guy for good measure, and the crowd loved Page.
Boy, did they love Page. That guy got himself over.
Dean Malenko versus Eddie Guerrero. This is a cruiserweight title match, and the winner will be defending against Ray at World War III the following Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
This Sunday. So,
Yeah.
exactly 19 years ago to the day, WWE is promoting Brock Lesnar versus Bill Goldberg. And WCW is promoting Bill Goldberg versus Mongo.
Yeah.
What will be better? I'm intrigued to find out.
So, neither will be as good as this match.
That's fair to say.
Dean and Eddie were awesome. My favorite part, Dean's beating him down in the corner. And the ref goes to pull Dean away. And Dean turns to face the ref and walk him back and intimidate him. And as Dean is doing this, Eddie raises his hands high for an axe handle and tiptoes out of the corner so as not to make a peep. But just as he is about to strike, Dean turns around. Eddie is caught red-handed. He drops to his knees to beg for mercy. And he pops up to offer a handshake like I was only kidding. And Dean grabs him by the hand and whips his ass some more. So awesome!
Eddie was on such a different level of charisma
Oh my god!
from even last year.
Thank you, Brian.
It's like one day, it wasn't even like a slow thing. It was like one day he woke up and figured it all out and was awesome. He was always great in the ring. But the other part of it, just he flipped a switch, just like The Rock, actually.
Sometimes I watch Dean Malenko and he looks very mechanical. I don't know what it was, the intensity in this match and the way he wrestled, it was like better than I'd seen him in a long time.
Well, kind of. Did you watch the cradle spots they were doing?
Yes.
Full robot mode for
Oh,
Dean
yeah, yeah.
Malenko. He had his moments.
They've been doing that in ECW for years.
Well, what I watched the cradle spots, and what I was into was I have mentioned this many times about why I hate the current Raw product because fans have been trained if it's not a finish, or if it's not a distraction, or if it's not the finishing move, it's not the end of the match. So who cares?
it's true.
when they are doing these cradles back and forth, and you can see fans leaning to the side to see around the ref to see if the man's shoulders are actually down, if this is the end, and then leaning back to the other way when the cradle gets reversed. God, wrestling used to be fun.
Well, enjoy it while you can, dude.
So Dean hits a very awesome top rope back suplex. That may have been too awesome, because the ref counted both men out and there was a double KO finish. And based on the way they were handling Eddie and he was communicating with them afterwards, it looked like he really got hurt here. Anyway, Eddie is still Cruiserweight champ and apparently will still face Ray at World War III. Lex Luger said he was as shocked as anyone Bret had joined the NWO, and somehow it took him like 4 minutes to say this. We had clips of a Nitro party.
Oh, boy.
Dude, us dancing to the DX music
I
was
was
way
gonna say.
cooler than that fucking party.
Scotty Riggs versus Saturn.
You know, I remember Riggs getting his eye hurt and going right into the flock, but apparently that's not what happened. And there was a great moment in this match.
There was the best moment of Scotty Riggs' whole career in this match.
I think we're thinking of something different. I'll tell
right.
you my favorite part.
All right.
I'm pretty sure this is not what you thought was the greatest moment of Riggs' career. Scotty Riggs is out there, and he's got his eye taped up and an eye patch on because he got toe-holded. He got dropped, toe-hold away. He fucking fell in a chair because of Raven. Raven did a move. So he comes out here, his eye's all gimmicked up, and first off, I have never tried to wrestle with a eye patch on. I never did a pirate gimmick, for example. Seems like it'd be pretty damn hard, but you'd never know that watching Scotty Riggs.
Yeah.
He's wrestling like he's got two eyes. So, in the middle of this, the eye patch gets ripped off. And we get a look at his bad eye. And he's got no eyeball, or no cornea.
There was an eyeball there.
It's just all white.
It was all milky white, yes.
Yeah, so imagine, have you ever met anybody whose eye was so messed up that it's like all white? I mean, that's a pretty fucking serious injury.
Yeah.
That's like a lifetime of cataracts.
Yeah.
You'd see this like anyway. The thing comes out and his eye is pure white. The cornea is gone. I mean, the man's clearly blind. You would think.
In the one eye.
And Mike Tenay, in the calmest manner possible, says, "Scotty Riggs' eye still showing the after effects."
That's what he said.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Mike Tenay was very, very good at certain things. He was really bad at other things.
They could have been horrified. They could
No.
have shown some shock of some
No,
kind.
you see Craig, his eye is just showing the after effects.
Well.
It's vanished.
One day it'll get better.
You were right. That was not the moment I was thinking of. Scotty's making his comeback. And he knocks Saturn from the ring, to make a long story short. And he goes up top to hit a dive on a Saturn. And he gets up there, and he's on this top rope standing there, like Batman. And he looks to his left, and there's his opponent and the TV champion, Saturn. And he looks to his right, and sitting in the crowd is that bastard Raven who took his eyeball and his flunkies. And Riggs does this massive plancha to the right, flying over the ringside area, over the guardrail, landing on Raven and his crew in the front row. It was so awesome.
Looked really good, and it was really safe.
He had 4 men to catch him.
Exactly.
One of them was Hammer, who was huge.
Dude, I don't care how big that guy is. If I had a list of guys to catch me, God bless Van Hammer, he ain't on the list.
I see your point. Regardless,
I'd have Ray catch me before Hammer.
it looked awesome. Then Saturn kicked his
I'd have
ass,
Battalion catch me before Hammer.
threw him in the ring. Would you have MC Hammer catch you before Hammer?
No. I've seen MC Hammer at a UFC show.
All right.
He ain't catching nobody.
All right. Anyway, Saturn tapped him out with the Rings of Saturn, and the flock continued the beating after the match until Raven called them off, and he's still trying to recruit Riggs.
I love how Riggs gets beaten up, and I think it was Mike Tenay just says, "Riggs has paid the ultimate price." I'm thinking, death?
He's
And then he goes, "The ultimate price, over and over again." It's like, wow.
Wow.
that sucks.
I thought he just lost his eye.
Riggs is so much better than I remember him being.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I thought he was just this uber geek.
Because when you were a kid, I'm going to explain this to everybody right now, okay?
Here we go.
Because when you were a kid, there were stars
Right.
and there were jobbers. And so if a guy was a jobber, as a kid, you thought he sucked. But we now live in a world where there are no stars, and basically everybody is a geek with one or two exceptions, Brock and Goldberg. It's pretty much about
At
it.
the end of the list.
Yeah.
Maybe
and so
Taker.
now you look back, and Riggs, instead of being a jobber, he'd now be any other guy on Raw, and so you recognize him as being really good.
Yeah. He was also an American male. That did not help with the cool factor.
Right. I just figured, we actually have, been in a ring and actually wrestled, and then you can respect that, oh my gosh, Riggs is amazing.
Yeah, he was really good. Kurt Hennig versus Lex Luger. A nothing match.
Luger's not the kind of guy who's going to drag a good match out of Kurt Hennig.
Think about what you just said, but you're right.
It's true.
Yeah.
Hennig needed someone to drag a match out of him. He needed a Chris Benoit, for example.
Right.
And Luger was not that guy.
No. They did a lot of brawling. A long sleeper spot. The ref went down. Hennig hit a belt shot. Went for the fisherman suplex, but the ref called for the DQ. So Kurt loses. You know what? I skipped an entire segment. The Steiners came out and the NWO beat him up.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot all about that. So Kurt is going after Lex.
Looks like we all did.
Now, there's
Must have been a hell of a segment.
There is a point to why I bothered to go back and mention that. Kurt loses. He starts to beat up Lex anyway until the Giant runs out to make the save. Where has this big man been all night? NWO's been running roughshod, destroying people.
I think the bigger question is Hennig and Flair have a no DQ match at the pay-per-view. And there was no Flair on this show. Why didn't he run out to make the save?
I don't know.
In fact, Hennig came out to the ring with Flair's robe with the sleeves ripped off.
Yeah.
No Flair.
Training.
Drinking. We're all training. Scott Hall versus Giant in the main event with Kevin Nash on commentary.
Nash is talking about how one-dimensional the Giant is.
Yeah.
This guy is funny.
Yes.
Everyone's right.
I'm sure he knew that one.
Yeah.
So, every once in a while, I'm just reminded, like we know this, having watched it for 20 years, but Giant is really, really big.
Well, it's funny you mention that. Giant looked like he'd gained 50 pounds from the last time we saw him.
Well, that too.
And it wasn't all fat.
Oh, no.
And I remember this because about a year ago, when he was much smaller, Nash had given him a power bomb.
That's right.
So they're building up to Starrcade, where they're going to have another match, if I recall correctly. And that's the match where Nash goddamn near kills him.
Yeah.
Because he gained a lot of weight in that year, and Nash's memory of how easy this guy went up was a little clouded.
Yes.
And he tried to lift this fucker and realized, wow, you're heavy. And he dropped him on his head and nearly killed him.
Yeah.
But it was very obvious here, wow, this guy is big. What the hell happened?
Well, I see your point, but I was thinking even more just Hall sells forever, and then outside begins to attack the hand. He's whacking the hand into the post and the stairs, and he's stomping on the hand back in the ring. And so Giant's laying down on the mat as Scott Hall is stomping him, and they cut back, and muscles or no muscles, Giant was so much bigger than Hall. And Scott Hall's a huge person. Just a massive, massive animal, the Giant is. Looks like a bear. So he starts to make his comeback with headbutts, because he's got the bad hand. At one point, he loses his focus, hits a punch with the bad hand, sells it. But as Hall is still wobbling around the ring, Giant stares at his hand, which is bleeding, and he focuses, perhaps meditates, and he is finally able to hit a chokeslam with a bad hand. And after this big, powerful moment, NWO hits the ring for the DQ.
God. Did you see the sign in the crowd? Taz. 3 letters, 1 word, 4 feet.
Yes. He was not as big as the Big Show.
I'm not sure he was as big as Battalion.
He may not have been.
He may have been Battalion.
Hey, don't get on Taz's bad side again. I remember the early days.
Like Taz, is Taz going to actually say, you know what, I'm actually tall? Give me a break.
I was talking more for your health.
What the hell's going on?
I'm Googling Taz Battalion. There seems to be no connection.
Wow. That was Vinny. Anyway, all the geeks hit the ring.
He wrestled
and
in Lost Battalion Hall once.
set up the 60-man battle royal at World War III, a main event we will not be watching for this show.
Oh, come on now.
We watched it last year, and it was so stupid.
Did we really?
Yes, we did.
I think I didn't.
Remember the three little squares?
It's split screens for like an hour.
I do recall this.
Yeah.
Was that last year or 2 years ago?
That's last year, brother.
Jeez. You know, when you have a baby, people go, it just goes by so fast. And I'm thinking, nothing's going by fast. I don't even remember last year when we watched World War III.
Let's not do that again.
Well, everyone, I guess that's it.
WCW Monday Nitro, November 24th, 1997, from Saginaw, Michigan. Start off, of course, with the NWO, as we do pretty much every week. They make their way down to the ring, sans Kevin Nash. Eric Bischoff announces that Kurt Hennig is still the U.S. champion. I forgot to say that World War III was the previous night. Scott Hall had made history by defeating 59 other top athletes to win World War III. Now, doesn't the winner of World War III get a shot at the champion?
Yeah, that's what they said here.
Isn't Hulk Hogan the champion?
Yeah.
So
they said Scott Hall is next in line for a shot at Hulk Hogan's world title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was no problem with this.
No.
Okay.
Clearly, they had planned the finger poke of doom years in advance.
But Kevin Nash was not the winner.
I'm talking the concept, jackass. When they got in the ring together, he was going to lay down for the guy.
Hogan gets on the mic. He says he feels the deck is now stacked with the NWO winning World War III. He said they were just too sweet. Because he's feeling so sweet right now, he would like to put the title up against anybody tonight. The Giant answers the challenge, comes down to the ring, but J.J. Dillon has to stop him because he's not medically cleared to wrestle because, well, Giant has a great big cast on his arm. Giant says he'll sign whatever paperwork is needed. He just wants that match with Hulk Hogan, and he called him the Blonde Bomber. Why, I'm not sure. JJ says he'll draft up some paperwork if Giant is willing to waive WCW if any further damage is done to him. He said the match is set. And Hogan seems pretty confident with his chances.
Listen, I know this would never fly here in 2016. Dude's got a broken damn arm.
Right.
That could spread to the rest of his body.
I think it was really only his thumb, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Anyway. So we're in Saginaw, Michigan, as stated before. And the first matchup is disorderly conduct. Yes, disorderly conduct versus the Steiner brothers.
You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been reviewing matches on Observer Radio, and I have no idea which is Primo and which is Epico, which Uso is which.
Right.
And without fail, Dave must alert me which is which.
Dave has a great talent of derailing a show.
It's not that. I just don't understand how anyone could care.
That's what I'm saying.
And what's amazing about it is the announcers had no idea which guy was which in this match.
Yes, there was Mean Mike and Tough Tom.
Now, granted, I don't work for WWE.
Fair.
It's not my job. I mean, I'm recapping the show. I suppose I should know which one is Primo and Epico, but it doesn't matter. But if I were a commentator for WWE,
Sure.
I should fucking know which is which.
That's fair.
But I'm not. These guys were. Tony's out there. He's describing him as one of disorderly conduct.
Yes.
He thinks the guy's Tom.
Uh-huh.
He's not sure. They have absolutely no idea which guy is which. Now, granted, it didn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter.
No.
19 years later, it
No.
didn't matter then. But I did laugh when it was very clear the announcers had no earthly idea which guy was which.
And apparently, I looked these guys up. Apparently, they had done some jobs on Sunday night.
Now, I will say, I remember disorderly
Or
conduct.
Saturday night, I'm sorry.
I remember the tag team. I don't have any idea which is which.
Well, why would you?
Which is really funny because I can tell Rage and Chaos apart. But they actually look different. That's the key.
One's blonde and one's brunette.
Yeah. These numbskulls look pretty much the same.
And
the
they have their names
Usos
on
look
their
the
tights.
same. Primo
Yes.
and Epoco look enough the same that I can't tell which one is which. But anyway, it is important. I do feel that it is important that I figure out which one is Tom now. Because he sucked. They do this match, and Scott is trying to fucking get Tom on his shoulders for the Bulldog off the top. This is Scott Steiner, who's blown up bigger each week.
If you could pop him with a pin right now. He's so inflated.
He tried 3 times to get Tough Tom up before Tom finally gets up. And on the 3rd try, Scott, at the top of his lungs, just yells, "God damn it!" And as he's trying to get him up, Rick is standing on the top rope, waiting. And he's just looking down at this state of incompetence with a look of disgust on his face. Like, motherfucker, just get on his shoulders. That's all you have to do is sit on Scott Steiner's shoulders. Can you fucking get it done? I loved this match. They threw the guys around.
Right.
There was comedy.
Yes.
I laughed. What the hell more could I ask for in wrestling?
And at the end, DiBiase yells into the camera, Hall and Nash, if you want the real belts, come get them. Next up, we had Meng versus Booker T. Jacqueline bounced her way down to the ring. This top, denying all laws of physics, the elasticity that held these memories in place. Amazing.
Was no elastic. They're fake. They
They don't.
they defy gravity on their own.
I see.
Because they're not real.
Huh.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
But let's talk about Meng and Booker T. Believe it or not, I want to talk about that more than boobs. Because I loved this little match right here.
It was fun.
Meng went for a power bomb, Booker rolled through, sunset flip for the pin, and then Meng just stands up, lurches towards him, and puts him in the death grip.
Yeah.
So he's got him in the death grip.
The man no sells getting beat.
Well, it was a cradle. So Stevie runs down, and he breaks a wooden chair over Meng's head, and Meng responds by standing up and putting him in the Tongan death grip. Barbarian runs down. My favorite team destroys these two dudes. I loved it. Dave hated it. I loved it. Dave hated the Faces of Fear.
What?
It's painful to me.
Do you go back and read his reviews every week?
Well, I go back and look at everything, yeah. I believe he gave the match they had at the pay-per-view a dud.
Wow.
I was like, there's no way a Meng and Barbarian match was a dud. Come on.
They throw men around. Why would it be a dud?
I mean, they roar.
They do.
They're mean.
They are.
I liked it.
So they replay JJ's ultimatum to Raven from last night. Last night being World War III. JJ tells Raven he needs to sign a WCW contract or he needs to get out of there. Next up, we have Gene and JJ heading over to where Raven is sitting with his flock. There's a new character in the flock, unidentified. Of course, it's Lodi. Lodi. Dylan wants to know why the contract he got back from Raven was scribbled all over with a bunch of writing on it. JJ felt it was unprofessional. Raven said he added his own stipulations to his contract. He will wrestle when he wants, get paid what he wants, he will wrestle who he wants, and he will only compete in no disqualification matches.
Do you realize that the other side's then got to sign that contract?
Right.
Huh.
You just can't grab a contract and put in your
No.
own stuff after they've signed
No, I'm just going to write it what I want in, and then it's legal.
it? Okay. I'm going to refi my house.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't paying nothing for that. About this time, Scotty Riggs strolls over to the barrier, and he jumps the barrier. He's wearing a leather eye patch.
He's broken.
He's broken Scotty Riggs?
Yeah.
Interesting. Next up, Chris Benoit versus Sick Boy. The beating that Chris Benoit laid on this man. was awesome.
He's still sold for the guy, though. Sick Boy got heat on Chris Benoit.
It was supposed to be Benoit versus Raven, but Raven grabbed Sick Boy by the hair and tossed him over the ring barrier and sent him into the ring to face Benoit. Of course, Benoit lays into him. Sick Boy tried a springboard. Looked pretty good with some of his aerial stuff. Looked pretty decent, actually. Benoit quickly grew tired of his springboards and started chopping him like a madman. Maybe that's a bad choice of words. I apologize. Sick Boy got a little bit of offense. He misses another springboard leg drop. Benoit hit the swan dive headbutt, and he went to put the crippler crossface on, but the flock hit the ring instead. Benoit immediately dispatches of all of them and puts the crippler crossface back on Sick Boy and gets the tap out. So all this interference to no avail, and Benoit still gets the tap out.
Well, let's talk about why this was great.
Okay.
So look, in WWE now, what would happen here is Benoit would be having a match with Sick Boy, all the geeks would hit the ring, they would beat him up, and they would leave him laying, and everybody would be sad. So what did WCW do instead? They actually did what was superior. Benoit's in the ring, all the geeks hit the ring, Benoit single-handedly beats up 5 men,
Right.
submits the dude, gets his hand raised, everybody's happy, and then they beat him up. So at least they gave the guy something before they beat the hell out of him.
Right.
Can we have more of that nowadays? Can we have more happy endings?
I should hope so.
Please, Craig.
Anyway, Benoit fights off Kidman and Lodi, and he gets nailed by Perry Saturn with the TV title, and Perry puts him in the rings of Saturn, all the while Raven is sitting there in the corner, and for whatever reason, Larry said he looks like Charles Manson.
Well, he's got a family.
He doesn't look like
They didn't
Charles
look
Manson.
like him. Charles Manson had long hair, and he oversaw some freaks. Same exact thing, dude.
Okay.
Don't question Larry, as we'll soon see.
So Larry's in the ring. He said he's had enough. Oh, I apologize. Let me back up just a little bit. They had the following announcement has been paid for by the NWO. He showed clips of Scott Hall and Eric Bischoff.
This is Granny here in the...
Oh, sorry.
What are you doing?
Well, the following announcement.
I see.
It just started playing.
They showed clips of Scott Hall and Eric Bischoff intimidating Zbyszko over the past few weeks, and all the way back to the beatdown they had at Halloween Havoc. So Larry had had enough. He's in the ring. He heads to the ring, and immediately propaganda begins to fall. One of the fans picks up the piece of paper and shows it to the camera, and it is a picture of Bischoff standing over Zbyszko. Larry,
I'll jump in here. Basically, Larry wants to fight Eric.
yes.
And Eric says yes. And they go after each other. And security holds them apart. And then it's over.
Right.
Nothing is settled.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep the show under 90 minutes. You were taking a while to get to that part right there.
I'm going to bring my Mac next time instead of my iPad so I can actually see it. Apparently, I'm getting older.
My eyesight's better than ever.
You have LASIK.
That's true.
Next up, we had Prince Iaukea versus Alex Wright.
This was when the damn show fell off a cliff.
It really is.
If the show would have ended at the Larry segment, even though nothing happened, it would have been a fine show.
It's true.
But from this point forward, every single thing, I guess maybe it wasn't here. I think it was actually the Brad Armstrong match. But it was slowly descending into a boring show. And then it kept getting more boring and more boring and more boring. And by the end, I was bored to tears.
They had mentioned that Prince Iaukea was back from a 3-week tour of New Japan. Apparently, New Japan, desperate for talent. Alex was winning on Iaukea until Deborah jumped up onto the ring apron
Oh, my
to
God.
cheer her man, and quote-unquote, her dress got caught in the turnbuckle.
Okay, so listen. Deborah's on the apron for like 10 minutes. And the ref is mad. Alex is mad at her. The ref is mad. Alex is mad. The ref is mad. Alex is mad. I'm like, can we fucking get going with this match? Just go home. But they just kept at it. And finally, after seriously, like, it felt like 20 minutes, Ayakea won with a high cross.
Yeah.
So she's been trapped in the goddamn turnbuckle for 10 minutes now.
Right.
She can't get herself out of it. So as soon as the match is over, Alex fires Deborah.
Mm-hmm.
He starts walking to the back, and she follows him.
Right. Don't look at me, dude. I don't know how she, quote unquote, got her dress undone. By the way, she sold this potential wardrobe malfunction by leaning up against the turnbuckle while she's on the apron. Ridiculous.
This sucked. But then we had something great. Randy Savage and the Disco Inferno. First off, the idea that we saw Randy Savage, the Macho Man Randy Savage, in a singles match on Nitro with the Disco Inferno blows my mind. So, people are going to be appalled at this comparison, but I don't care. It's my show. Randy Savage is exactly like Shinsuke Nakamura in NXT right now. He is a fucking great worker, and he gets the absolute most out of everything he does, and he never does anything more than he needs to.
That's actually fair.
He doesn't do one thing more than he needs to do. He doesn't make one movement more than he needs to make. Everything he does looks great. God, he was so good in this match. And it wasn't even much of a match.
Now, the announcers were pointing out how often Elizabeth had been getting involved physically in the matches. So the first thing that happens, Disco goes to hit the ropes, and Liz grabs his leg. First thing. He goes outside. He's confronting Liz. Macho Man sneaks up behind him, hits him in the head. He turns around. Elizabeth shoves him into the ring post.
Yeah, she posted Disco.
Yeah.
Flying elbow finish. Second one. Third one. Beats up the ref. And then has Liz put her foot on Disco's chest, and Savage counts the pin.
And then he hits a fourth elbow, just cuz.
What a bully.
They pan over to a big, huge cover of WCW Nitro for PlayStation 1. Tony calls the game WCW versus the NWO World Tour. Even though, on your screen, you're looking at something that says WCW Nitro. They come back for a commercial, and Tony says, I apologize. I called that incorrectly, and calls it by the real name. Actually, pretty funny.
All right, I'm reviewing this next match for you, because if we spend more than 10 seconds on this, I'm going to be furious.
Can I say this?
Yes.
The one good thing I will say about this match, I forget how great Brad Armstrong is, and when I see him in the ring doing mat work with Dean Malenko for just like the first minute of this match, I was very happy. Take it away, Brian.
Solid match. Nobody gave a shit. In fact, they chanted boring. And then Dean Malenko won with a clover leaf.
Yeah.
Mongo!
Yeah. Gene brings out Mongo.
Mongo was so awesome.
He is cackling to himself.
He now respects Alex Wright. He said, man, it only took this guy a couple of weeks to do what it took me years to do.
Right. He's cackling about Deborah being fired by Alex Wright. Deborah comes out and tries to sweet talk Mongo. He says, let's get the team back together. Said she'll do anything. To which Gene raised an eyebrow. Realizing that everybody in America's mind has just gone to anything. So she changes her words just a little bit and tries to take it back, but Mongo is telling her to hit the bricks. I don't want to hear it. Get out, leave.
No, what happened was he said, get the hell out of here.
Yes, Brian, that's what he said.
Yeah. Let's not mince words.
So she's on her way to WWF. Gene looks at the camera and looks at Mongo and he says, you know, she said she'd do anything. And then they went on to the next segment. Gene was a little creepy here.
He's always creepy.
Next up, we had Buff Bagwell versus Chris Jericho.
A solid match, but it was just a match. At this point, everything was boring. Bagwell beat him up for a while, Jericho made a comeback, and then Buff hit a blockbuster and pinned Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
What?
Match went 7 minutes.
That was 7 boring minutes. And then we had 7 more boring minutes. Kurt Hennig and Ray Traylor for the U.S. title. There is only one thing to talk about. There's actually 2 things to talk about in this match, and that's it. The first thing is, Ray Traylor did the 10 punches in the corner, where you put a guy in the corner, and you climb up to the second turnbuckle, and you rain down punches on the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, Ray Traylor climbed up to the first turnbuckle.
Sure.
And so, instead of looking violent, it looked very intimate.
Maybe he lost count.
What are you talking about?
Well, maybe he counted the apron as 1, and then he climbed up to the first one. 2. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Well, he was not where he was supposed to be.
I understand.
And he was crowding him, as they say. So then, at the end of this match, Boss Man hits the Boss Man Slam.
Yes, he does.
I believe that Scott Hall was supposed to hit the ring to break up the pin.
I believe that as well.
But hey, it's Scott Hall, it's 1997, and he's just late. Saunders his ass in. He's so late that Kurt Hennig kicks out of the Boss Man Slam. Now, I know that Hall was supposed to break it up because the Big Boss Man, as he is covering Kurt Hennig, is looking to the back, waiting for Scott Hall.
Right.
And he looked to the back in such a dramatic manner that Tony Schiavone had to turn it into a storyline. He says, Ray Traylor knew as soon as he hit his move that the NWO was going to run in.
Well, if that's what they tell you in the back, that's probably what's going to happen.
And you know what? This show has come to the point now where the announcers are acknowledging that if a babyface hits a move on an NWO guy, everybody's going to run in. And it's just common knowledge now.
Right.
So yes, the NWO ran in. They beat up Ray Traylor. I fucking was trying so hard not to fall asleep. This was so boring.
And Macho Man delivered the 5th top rope elbow drop of the evening.
Now you wonder why his hip was going.
Right. They then showed clips of Scott Hall attacking Giant's arm at the pay-per-view, which leads us to the main event. WCW World Champion Hulk Hogan versus the Giant.
Dude, this match. First off, Bischoff and Rude come out to do commentary, and they're not good. So, Hulk Hogan is the heel, and the Giant is the babyface.
Correct.
Hulk Hogan's the champion. Hulk Hogan offered to wrestle anybody, and then accepted a match with the Giant.
Right.
So, I guess in storyline, Hogan must have thought that he could really beat anybody, but he told his buddies, if I'm in trouble, run in. But anyway, if you take out that, which they never say, you just kind of have to presume it yourself because the rest of the fucking story doesn't make sense. Hogan's a total babyface here. He issued an open challenge, the biggest guy on the roster accepted, and he said sure, and he went in there and wrestled the guy. Then, the Giant, who has a broken arm or finger or thumb or hand or whatever, he's got a big giant fucking cast on his arm. Mm-hmm. He starts walloping Hulk Hogan with it.
As you would.
Right in front of the referee.
As you would.
I'm like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah, so he's fighting back the pain. He's hitting everyone with the cast.
No, I know he's fighting through the pain, but that's a blatant foreign object heel spot.
But he signed a contract, a special thing with JJ. It's okay, Brian.
This is Bob Orton. He's playing Bob Orton here.
I hear you.
Who was a heel with his damn cast.
I understand. I was just giving you a hard time.
This is so stupid. And then Giant hits the choke slam. It's too bad they didn't have those things in UFC where you can buy the headphones to hear the commentary.
Yeah.
Because then all the fans would have understood what was going on here. And they must have already, because Giant has a choke slam, and just like Tony Schiavone said, everybody stands up, and they look to the back. And sure as shit, for the 9 millionth time,
a 7-foot-tall Sting strolled to the ring.
you could totally, I mean, it wasn't even he was tall, but you could see how he walked.
Yeah.
It was Kevin Nash.
Absolutely.
Which at least played into the storyline with the Giant.
So Kevin strolls down to the ring. He wallops the Giant's bad hand with a bat. He then unmasks and gives the cheesiest grin I've ever seen. They all gang up on...
I do love when heels do something, and like, it's so obvious what they did, but they think that they fooled everyone.
Right.
Like, he took off his mask and he's just howling like, you all thought this 7-foot man was really Sting, who could barely walk with skinny legs. They put one over on them fans.
So they start beating on the Giant, and then one of them looks up, and Sting is descending from the rafters at a rapid pace. So this dummy, who they had to have dipped in cement, falls from the rafters and crashes through the ring apron and through all the way to the ground. And so just the head is sticking up. Of course, it's a dummy, and they start hitting with the bat and ha.
Could you possibly undersell this anymore? They drop a dummy from the ceiling, and the dummy goes through the ring. Now, obviously, in hindsight, this is horrifying.
Yeah.
But it's bad enough that the dummy goes through the ring, its head is sticking out, as you said, and Kevin Nash stands up, and he gets the belt, and he fucking swings it and just smashes the dummy's head.
Yeah.
And then he hits it again.
And again.
And then Hogan gets the bat, and he's like golfing, and he just smashes the head of this dummy, and I'm like, this is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in wrestling. I mean, I can't think of anything fake that comes close to this.
Brian, there was nobody in that arena that thought that was actually
I know
Sting.
that, but the
Why
visual,
is it horrifying?
The visual of this thing falling through the ring and then they're bashing its head in with a baseball bat, swinging it as hard as they can.
Okay.
I was like, oh my God, this is horrible.
So this insanity ensues and it fades to black, and thank God that was one of the... It was really good at the beginning, and then it fell off a cliff. This was not a good edition of Nitro.
Listen, I'm not a fan of dropping the dummy through the ring, especially after what happened with Owen Hart.
Right.
But when I saw this happen, I thought, okay, here's what's got to happen. I start booking after I see it. Even though I would never book it in the first place, what is happening, I then try to book it. So I'm thinking, the dummy should have fallen from the sky and went through the ring, and then they were hitting it in the head with the baseball bat. And the fans are already chanting, "We want Sting."
Right.
So what should have happened is, after they hit it in the head with the baseball bat, they should have been in there in the ring, and they should have been celebrating and laughing and grab-assing and the whole 9 yards.
Oh, they did that too.
And as they're doing that, the real Sting should have switched places and then came out of the hole and beat the shit out of everybody.
That's not bad.
That would have at least been a payoff. Just too many of these NWO run-ins with no payoff.
Yeah, like you said, it's getting very repetitious.
But people are still buying tickets in droves. It's crazy. It's madness.
A buddy of mine pointed out how many Austin 316 signs there are at WCW. I don't know if you've noticed.
I have not noticed.
It's the switch is coming.
Not for a long time.
Okay.
I mean, the rating switch starts in spring of next year.
So less than 6 months.
We're less than 6 months away from the rating switch. But WCW is still making money hand over fist, and it's like neck and neck for a long time.
Yeah, but they're just running in place right now.
I know, but you watch the show and you think that they should be getting a 0 rating. And they're not.
Right.
I watched the show, and I mean, it's still fun. I like to watch it every week, but it kind of blows my mind that many people just keep watching the same show every week.
People are creatures of habit.
Yes, they are. That show was boring, everybody. You don't need to watch it.